up, Matt?
But just you and me again.
No, Greg here. Greg is getting stuff.
There's a way for me to turn up the volume here. I hear you,
Hey,
but
Greg. What's up, Greg?
Can you hear me now?
We can.
oh yeah, I just had to turn the volume up. Now I can hear you. How was Scotland?
It was outstanding. Outstanding. Had great weather.
You
Yeah.
have trouble understanding people?
Yeah, it's hard to believe that people speak the same language. When I got to the airport there, and you go to the immigration guy, he looks at me and goes, "Are you here for the Gulf?" So all week we just said, "Yeah, we're here for the Gulf."
That's a good answer, man. How's the weather for that thing? I mean, is it warm?
It was we had great weather. It rained the last 2 holes of the last day.
That's almost perfect. You got to play through that, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the true Scottish experience is 58 degrees, 30-mile-an-hour wind and rain. But we only had that experience for 2 holes. The rest of the time it was really beautiful. So good stuff.
How were the kilts? Did you wear those while you played?
We did not participate in anything like that.
You make it sound like it's a criminal activity. Come on.
Oh, that's great. Well, just waiting for a couple more people to stream in here. Since I'm not showing any right now.
Yeah, I'll be right back. Hang on.
Yep. I'm rocking the grape Waterloo today, Matt.
I see you're rocking a beard too.
Yeah, that just means I need to
let your testosterone shine through.
Yeah, I need to shave that, according to my wife.
My wife doesn't like it when I shave.
Yeah, I need to. I've tried trimming it up a little bit, but I'm not good at doing that. So I was talking to a group out of Greenwood, Wisconsin before we got on the phone, and they've got a lumber yard and they build buildings up there. And like, hey, we watch you guys on your podcast every now and then. That's how they heard about us, right? There's Jerry. Jerry's here. Yeah.
Our shirt colors are the same. They're like almost identical blue. That's weird.
Right. Right. Well, Jerry's here, so it's just not counting. It's not counting on LinkedIn. And Jerry, thank you for being on our Smart Market with Mike a couple Fridays ago. That was really insightful. We had a lot of good feedback on that. All right, Greg, we're here. So welcome to This Week in Lumber with Matt Beamer from Hampton Lumber Sales, Greg Riley from Sitka USA, back from Scotland for his week-long golfing expose. And Ashley Buckle from Materials Exchange, the only digital B2B platform in the lumber industry, digitally matching buyers and sellers and creating transparency. So Greg and I talked, Matt, a little bit before you got on, catching up on what he was doing. And I saw you had some items that you wanted to go over. I think one of the things that we always talk about, and maybe we'll lead into some of these conversations, the market always acts a little weird, different than what most people think. Greg was saying spring 2020, we thought it was going to be a horrible year. It was a great year. Now everybody kind of thinks it's going to be not so great a year, and it's probably going to be just fine, right? And with that in mind, we're kind of talk about the boring impending lumber market of summer 2022. Is that fair enough to kind of to maybe label it that way?
I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, we've experienced 2 years of like the wildest market that is even beyond imagination, and it kept amazing everyone. And, moving to a period that's pretty mundane and boring would seem to be, the inevitable, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, and Matt, I think you see that both on the wholesale distribution side and and the mill side, right? So let's talk about a few things that are coming up, right? I had a conversation with a person yesterday, actually Mike did, and they're like, well, we're going to really see how the takeout is at home centers over the holiday to see how we're going to see if the market what's going to do after that. I'm like, oh, I really wouldn't judge anything from what happens at a home center over the 4th of July at this point. That's all probably in the books at this point, what's going on with repair and remodel. It's not that bad at all. It's still moving along. Is it going to be as good as it was the last 2 years? I don't know. It doesn't seem like it so far, right? But it still seems pretty good, the outtake. Matt was talking about summer shutdowns, which happen every year. We got some new log pricing to talk about in Canada and increased lumber or log pricing in southern yellow pine. So let's kind of grab a hold of one of those and talk about it.
I mean, I'll talk about sort of my top-down view of how I view the market. I think home center business is going to be just fine, like you just alluded to. I mean, it hasn't had the big spike in activity, but it also hasn't had the big drop in activity either. It's just been a nice, consistent business. And that business, what we've learned in the last couple of years is very sensitive to price, right? So the consumer will not buy expensive lumber. The retail lumber buyer at the corporate level, running a lumber yard, kind of had to buy the expensive lumber. They didn't have choices. They had to keep the lumber coming because the home builders were demanding it. But you and me on our weekend budget, we maybe don't want to go to Home Depot and buy a bunch of expensive fence boards or studs when the price triples. And so that's what we found out the last 2 years with that segment of the market. But they're doing just fine, and the price of lumber has gone back to what is more normal historically. So that doesn't freak anybody out when they walk into the store and see a $4 or $5 stud. No big deal.
Yeah, actually, Matt, that could actually have a effective a little bit more, more outtake out the door, right?
I think we're seeing that. I mean, our business is slightly improved there in that part of the market. I think that is a trend that will continue just based on the retail price of lumber at the store level, right? And then the other part of the market that we all talk about has an incentive to continue building at a rapid pace would be the multifamily. Apartments are just in need, right? We need more housing in this country, and right now rents are going up, and that's going to be good for the people that are building apartments and hotels and things like that. Now, the single family part of the market is probably under the most pressure, just because it's more sensitive to interest rates, right? And those have doubled.
For sure. And let's talk about that. As Greg sat back down, Matt opened up a great conversation. Multifamily versus single family and how we're building this year. And then I wanted to circle back to Jerry's question about lumber pricing. Well, like Matt was saying rents are boding well for multifamily. Single family is down. So maybe you could share that stat you gave me on the first 5 months or 6 months of the year and what your thoughts are, Greg, on multifamily, single family, and overall.
So for the first 5 months of the year, starts are up 8.2%, 3.2 for single family and 19.8 for multifamily. And, I think if I look at where the numbers are going to be at the end of this year, I think single family starts are actually going to be lower than they were last year. And multifamily may be up, will be up somewhat. I'm looking at total starts being perhaps, unchanged to slightly lower year over year. So, we're looking at a second half of the year where the demand side is lower. And skewed towards multifamily. I mean, the big wild card is, okay, so that's all of what we know. Markets have the biggest moves when reality ends up being different from everyone's expectation of reality. You think about all the players in the market, producers, intermediaries, end users, consumers, all have a point of view about what they think about the market. And when reality is the same as that, the market doesn't do much because everybody's positioned for that happening. It's when something's different than everyone's point of view that you see these outsized moves. So always the wild card is, what are the unknown unknowns? And that's the hard part. We started off saying, hey, it's going to be a boring summer. I think that's true, unless something happens that we don't see right now. Right.
Yeah, good point. And Jerry, who's really heavily involved in that in the multifamily side, I believe, was saying single family will definitely be lower year over year. Multifamily market is strong. Jerry also had a question. Do you think lumber is up or down or neutral from here through September? I mean,
Yes.
let's look at where we just came from, right? I mean, we up to 2 weeks ago, market was, we can arguably say, in some type of free fall. It basically got some legs underneath it now. I think the low trade prices, you guys do this a lot more, are probably out of the market from what I see, and many items from their low trade price, I'm not taking print, are up pretty good relative to the overall price. Does that make sense? Especially
right.
multifamily related items are up 9-foot studs from their low trade price. Those type, and people tried to move risk off. They're still trying to move risk at a lot lower numbers than most people are taking right now, right? Which you both see every day. But I guess I don't really have an answer. I don't know what it's going to be through here through September, right?
Well, the unknown unknowns that Greg calls them would be how much production is curtailed between now and, say, Labor Day. We don't know, right? We can guess, but we don't know for sure. And we don't even know why. So some of it might just be historical summer shutdown stuff that we're used to. But there might be some shutdowns that happen that we never expected. You never know. Like the economics of producing lumber look at the log prices in Canada going up here significantly in July. Now, I personally, I take more of a negative viewpoint on that, where I don't think it's going to matter that much. I think the mills have made so much money the last 2 years that they're just going to keep on running. That's my personal opinion. But what if I'm wrong? What if they all say, hey, we don't like this. We're going to shut down. We don't want to buy these logs. We're going to take the rest of the summer off. I mean, that's an unknown that could happen. The other one is fires. Well, right now we've had a super wet year. I don't see fire danger. There is no fire warnings I can go camping and have a fire right now in Oregon, anywhere in Oregon, right? There's no fire danger. Well, what happens if we get into August and there's a massive forest fire that starts affecting production? I mean, these are things that we don't control. And then the other thing is, what if things get a little bit better, in terms of people decide that, this 6% mortgage isn't that big of a deal and they're just going to keep buying housing, I don't really have an answer for these things. I just know what I'm prepared to react, I guess, is the way I look at it. But I'm sort of in the show me phase of the market now, instead of trying to guess where it's going to go. I just want to see what happens, then react to it.
Which if people don't know, how you schedule, do your business, because you have a lot of systems that you use, Matt. I know the kind of volume that you trade, right? And Greg also, and I bet you're off 60% from what you normally keep at locations, right? Is that fair enough to say that from the basically the hammer you can usually swing?
My inventory's, it's way down, and it'll stay way down. I don't plan on carrying the same kind of risk level that I did the last 2 years, where the last 2 years it made some sense to take a little bit more risk. We were dealing with a lot of volatility and big price swings. And if you could keep yourself on the right side of those price swings, you could make some good money. But right now, I feel like we're flattening out, which is what Greg started off talking about. I think, if we are truly going to have a boring summer, then why do I need to carry that much inventory to support that? I don't.
Yeah.
It's just not necessary.
And I think that's going to be true across the spectrum. You feel it from the big corporate buyers that the the accounting people are looking at capital, and they want them to squeeze those numbers down, and certainly across the the distribution landscape. To Matt's point, the risk profile here doesn't say got a hunch, buy a bunch.
So back to Jerry's question. If none of these unknowns happen, there's less people taking risk. Less people take risk. There's less volume being traded. Less volume being traded. Less order files being built. Less order files being built. Less ability of price to make just big volatile moves. Back to what you said 6 weeks ago in this, Greg. Volatility's probably coming out, and there's going to be, lower lows and lower highs, right? Is that and we saw that already. Just happened a lot faster than I thought it would happen.
Right now, what we've had is what we're experiencing is what's called a bull rally in a bear market, and so we'll have to see how that plays out. To Jerry's point, I mean, hey, the best guess now is that the market's firmish, now through sometime in late August, maybe has a little bit of an adjustment. Here's the fact. Canadian mills still have an issue shipping their lumber. There still is issues at the CN. So, things had gotten better after 3 or 4 weeks of buyers going away, and mills had caught up on their shipping file. Now they're back out because being conservative. If shipping gets better, then there's plenty of lumber available at mills, irrespective of curtailment or summer shutdowns. They built big mill inventory. So the curtailing really doesn't mean anything this year in, more than ever. So anyhow, back to that is, I'm expecting, maybe a choppy trading range market through the summer with not a lot of net change in prices.
The board's telling you the same thing. If you look at every contract between now and a year from now, they're all within a $30-$40 range of each other, right?
Great, but talk about a great opportunity for the forward pricing in the marketplace. Sell in July,
it takes the risk out of it.
In September, if you've got stuff out into the third quarter, picking up, I think picking up $50 1,000 in this market is exceptional.
I mean, even if you didn't want to use it as a trade, if you just wanted to use it to take delivery, right? Let's just say you're a guy with your own futures account and your own ability to take delivery of the lumber. You can buy today at 630. You can buy tomorrow at 590. You can buy a little bit further down the road at 605. You can go into next spring and only have to pay about a $40 premium to today's cash price to take some lumber next March, right? So
that's a good
in
point,
your
Matt.
lifetime, when you see that, the market is just telling us what we're already saying. It's just reflecting our attitudes. And when you start seeing these big premiums in the back months or these big discounts in the back months, then it's telling you a different story. So anyhow, there you go.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. What is so Matt? What is the cash 2x4 price today on a CME based relative deal? I mean, that's a tough one with the three people that produce it.
We just sold a car 2x4 2 and better, good random tally of 2, 4, 8, 12, and 16 at 750 Chicago for prompt.
Okay,
that came out of Decker Lake. We just sold it 7 minutes ago. So there you go, 750 Chicago.
Perfect real-time pricing. So what would that be like BC mill price about?
650 BC. Yeah,
650 BC. And where's CME trading at right now?
630.
630. Okay, so Greg, it's we still got to get CME to get a premium to the cash market, right? Or is it already?
It's about the same if you really do the math.
Yeah,
I mean,
pretty
it's
much, Matt. That makes
it's
sense.
640 if you put the 1% back in and all that.
Well,
Yeah.
if you think about the last 6 months, futures and cash are as close together, as they've gotten at any time in the last 6 months. I mean, the thing to watch is, what happens to the discount to September. I mean, if you all of a sudden, see September at an $80 or $100 discount, to Matt's point, that's going to be giving you some viewpoint as to, where prices are going to be in the fall.
Right? Yeah, that doesn't sound real exciting.
You have to remember that, the seasonality of lumber is that it's not unusual to get a market that, that has some strength into the summer, kind of holds into August, and then once we get into September, I mean, the last 2 weeks in September are the 2 weakest weeks of the year, and the seasonal low in 7 out of 10 years is the third week in October. So, I mean, that's the seasonal. Everybody always wants to tell me how the seasonals don't work, but you know what? They don't work perfectly. There's always last year the market bottomed in the third week in August instead of the third week in October. Okay. But it also had an 82% price fall. So, they're averages, right? We've had the years where the market didn't bottom until the first or second week in December or the first or second week in January.
Hey, Matt, real quick, I wanted to go back and touch on what you said on the new log pricing in Canada. Is that going up because it's still trailing to the spot market? Is that the reason, or did I miss something?
No, I think it's based on the first and second quarters sales prices. So they have a different mechanism now for how they price their logs. And I don't know the intricacies of it, Ashley, to tell you the truth. I'm not,
No, that's okay. I was just more curious.
I just know that it's based on the negotiated settlement that Canada and the U.S. had when they had their various different trade wars and lawsuits over the years. And so they went to this market-based pricing. So it's kind of a trailing average, right? They're using the first quarter pricing and the second quarter pricing to come up with a new third quarter pricing of their logs. So they're going to be paying a lot more for the resource. And then, there's another problem in British Columbia specifically. The government's changed. They have a different government there, and that government now is more protective of the forests, and they're going to experience in British Columbia what we've been experiencing in Oregon and Washington for the last 40 years, which is a government that isn't going to make it any easier for them to get the logs out of the forest into their lumber yards. It's going to make it harder, regardless of any trade agreements that we have as two countries, right?
Sure. I saw where somebody requested in Washington to knock the tariffs off the wood coming across, and that was a big no-go. It sounded like last week, right? So nothing new there. But Bo was saying, and somehow the industry doesn't use the CME on either side. I think that's what he's saying. Of the contract. Not really. Maybe this new contract will pull some people in using this numerous ways for them, for our own plan. Yeah, hopefully, Bo, that's the whole purpose of splitting it into a truckload size contract, to get more people, to get more speculators in for liquidity, and to get more people in using the contract, right?
When's that going to occur? When they're going to make that change?
I don't know if it's been officially announced yet, but I could be wrong on that.
So, I mean, the change won't take effect until, while there's an open contract month, they can't make the change. So the change will be effective for a contract next year sometime. I'd have to look and see what contract months are already open. But they don't, that's what a contract's made up of once a contract month is open.
Right.
One interesting thing, I was looking at the news stories coming across yesterday. There's more Southern Pine mills being built. Go figure, right? They just announced another one the other day, and I saw more CapEx announcements. So I think, Greg, you said this 2 or 3 months ago. I think one thing you said, we're going to be surprised at the end of 2022 when they come up with the stats for how much extra production came on through CapEx in new mills in the South. And Matt, that could also be maybe one of the reasons, and we've been kind of talking about this. You start putting mills in heavily concentrated areas, it'll eventually raise the price of those cheap logs we're talking about, right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, you just have a higher demand for the fiber. But the next thing is that I heard this. I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard a buddy of mine who pays more attention to it than I do said that all these new mills are using the same equipment and they want to run the same size log. So you know what you're also doing is squeezing you're taking a 4-lane freeway and turning it into a 2-lane freeway. You know, you're just creating a bottleneck really for, hey, we need a certain size log. It goes into this machinery and every mill has the same machinery and they're going to produce the same type of output. I don't know if that's true or not, but that was a statement I heard yesterday, and I thought it was interesting to think about it just as a math problem. But you know, not a lot of diversity, I guess, in terms of what type of lumber they want to pump out in the South, and it's a lot of 2x6. So we would rather produce 2x4 up here in the North. I don't know why, but our mills are just better at making 2x4. I mean, there's literally mills 20 miles from here that all they make is 2x4, right?
Yeah.
But the Yellow Pine guys, they seem fascinated with pumping out 2x6, and look what happened to 2x6 Yellow Pine the last 90 days. It's just destroyed the value of every other type of whitewood 2x6 2 and better product. I looked at print over Friday print on 2x6 number 3 Western spruce, 280 mil. That stuff was trading for 700, 800 not that long ago.
What price was it, Matt?
Yeah.
280 mil.
I wonder if
That's
Jerry's
because
still
it
on
was
this call.
competing with Yellow Pine number 2.
I wonder if Jerry could ever use any Southern Pine all the way out in the California market out there, and replace some.
It'll
of the
happen.
Species. Yeah,
it'll happen
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah, we've seen it moving all over. Dean said the Premier John Horton just announced he's retiring. Hopefully, this gives us hope of better forestry in years to come if the NDP loses next term. Yeah, I don't know anything about Canadian politics, so that it sounds like they're getting rid of somebody that was a little bit less conservative and getting somebody in that's more conservative on forestry, maybe. But again,
that's what's changed in BC the last 5 years is that the current government in BC that was elected is a lot more protective of the forestry, of the natural resources. This is a thing that's occurred for 40, 50 years in the United States. You know, we've been as a country, you can agree with this or not, but the United States wants to hold on to its natural resources and then have the rest of the world extract all of their natural resources and sell it to us. That seems to be our standing business model. We'll keep our oil in the ground. We'll keep our trees in the ground, and then we'll just buy your trees and your oil, right? That's how we've operated our economy. And British Columbia was really good at supplying us timber for all these years, lots of it. You know, we even have a contract based on their lumber, right? Literally, our futures contract is based on British Columbia. Think about that.
Yeah. Jerry said not a chance on Southern Yellow Pine in California at the moment. Kel is definitely a Doug fir market and a green Doug fir market at that. So Matt, one thing I want to say is we got to be careful we don't break into the strategic lumber reserve here in the United States too.
It's like 5 miles from my house. Come on over.
All right, guys. We'll look at, man. I won't go any farther on that.
That's a great comment. That's funny. I'm sorry. That's good. Good.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for
Have a great
showing.
week.
Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week.
See you. Bye.
Thanks.
See ya.